Oh my gosh. I made it 2 days into the Japanese lessons. I should be uploading a third one today, and I just. Today has just been such an exciting and wonderful day that I'm not even able to work on another lesson because today is the day that our boy Matt from Matt versus Japan seems to be experiencing a little bit of a breakup. Is that the consequences of my own actions that I smell? You guys seriously have no idea how excited I am for this, okay? I am I'm shaking. I'm literally shaking with excitement over how wonderful all of this little controversy is, and I am just more than happy to offer up my input. So, to give you a little bit of background as to exactly what's going on here, if you happen to be the one person who's been hiding under a Japanese rock for a while, an ishi, if you will, uh, Mad vs. Japan has been one of the leading figures in the Japanese immersion community, which I have my own hangups with, but I won't get into. And I have never, since the first time I saw him, ever really liked Matt versus Japan. He is, in my personal opinion, one of the leading examples of somebody who has mastered his craft and has no ability to teach it whatsoever. He is the perfect example of somebody who is really good at something but does not have the charisma or the prowess or the maturity to adjust to a learner's preferences and teach what he knows to somebody else. So, I have been avidly against Matt versus Japan for a long time. And I think the true turning point was when he started to go against the Japanese learning community, started going after things like the DJT, started going after Anacreon. Anacreon was kind of the big one for me because I think that would have been a really fun thing to have on YouTube. And boy, oh boy, Matt just couldn't let that one slide. And if you happen to not know this either, Matt versus Japan has also been teaming up with our boy Ken Cannon for the last few years to work on Japanese courses and, you know, you know. And man, oh man, do I have some things to say about Ken Cannon, everybody's favorite Japanese scammer. I I will get into Ken Cannon in another video. Honestly, Ken is such a dot in the distance when it comes to this entire thing. Matt versus Japan is really the thing that I want to talk about today. If you happen to know all of that, but not know what's been going on with our poor boy Matt here, well, you see, after Matt's latest course with Ken Cannon started to, dwindle down a little bit, he decided to rope in his good buddy George Trombley of Japanese from Zero fame in one of his marketing emails. And I'm personally a big fan of George. I like him. He was personally one of my inspirations for wanting to even get into teaching in the first place. And even though I disagree with him on a few things, and I've not always been the biggest fan of some of his YouTube content, I love him, honestly, as a person. I think he's done a lot of really good stuff in the world. I think he's a really good person to have in the Japanese learning community. And, maybe his Japanese isn't quite up to par with some of the, younger up and coming people that we have. But you know what? For all intents and purposes, I think George is great. I think he's awesome. And one of the biggest hangups I've had with George over these few years is he would not come to the light and see reason as to how awful Matt was. There's always been some kind of excuse as to why Matt gets a pass. Back in the day, He was extremely arrogant, and George kind of gave him a little bit of a pass because of how high a level he was able to reach in his Japanese. And then a little bit of time goes on, and George starts to stand up for him a little bit and say, you know what? He's a lot less arrogant, guys. I had dinner with him, and he was really nice to me. That's how you know he's not as arrogant as he used to be. I mean, I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this, but when somebody is nice to you, you cannot take that as a sign that they are becoming a better person. You have to look at how they treat others, and I promise you, Matt versus Japan has not been very kind to others. So I completely and totally understand that George wants to keep a professional relationship going with Matt. And you know what? Behind the scenes, seems like they're pretty good friends. Who would want to break up such a beautiful and loving relationship like that? Well, after the entire thing with using George Trombley's name in a marketing email, uh, turns out Matt kind of did, because that entire friendship right now is probably the rockiest that it's ever been. George Trombley came out with not one, but two different live streams about how upset he was with this whole Ken Cannon and Matt's situation. So finally, after all this time, George is finally starting to come to the light. He's finally starting to see that Matt is not a great person. He's not just young and dumb and naive and starry eyed. He actually is pretty awful. And George, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for finally seeing reason and holding him accountable a little bit. But that brings us to today. So it turns out that after Matt and Ken Cannon's little course didn't quite pan out the way that they wanted, on top of now the controversy of being publicly called out by one of the other leading figures in the YouTube Japanese teaching community, Matt has decided to finally cut the rope and let Ken Cannon go to try and save a little bit of face. And that is what I would like to talk about today. Pretty funny email came out, and I'll just give a full on, I want to be as transparent as possible. This is something that is currently being talked about within like the sort of, I want to say underground without sounding pretentious, but I don't know if it's possible to do that. These emails and these screenshots and stuff don't belong to me. They belong to like two or three people in the Japanese learning community that have kind of been orbiting around Matt a little bit. So none of these are mine. Just want to get that out there. If they're yours, I apologize, but I really want to talk about them. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to go ahead and start with this fun little email that's been going around from Matt versus Japan to the people who signed up to his previous course with Ken Cannon. The title of this email is I'm Cutting Ties with Ken Cannon. Oh, that's how you get people clicking, because that's the thing people have been telling him to do for a very long time now. Hey guys, this is the first email you've ever received from me that I actually wrote myself. Until now, Ken Cannon drafted the emails, and I simply looked over them. Oh my gosh! Writers in Hollywood get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to try and write hateable, love to hate villains in movies and TV series, and they could not fathom how fun it is to hate Matt versus Japan. I cannot believe how scummy this guy is. Just to be clear, Matt has always had copy in his brain. There is no part of my being that believes that Matt was not completely okay with every single thing that Ken Cannon was doing until it started to hurt his professional relationship with George Trombley. No fiber of my being believes for a second that he was ever not okay with any of this. Matt, in all of his interviews, in all of his background talk, has always talked about how he can make the most possible money from teaching Japanese. This has always been his goal. This has always been the plan. After everything that happened with yoga, after everything that happens with everything, there is no way that he was just this poor battered he was in this abusive relationship with King Cannon and he didn't like it. He didn't like it, but he had to let it go out for Ken's sake. I do not believe that. Absolute horse crap. Oh, but here it goes. Comes back around. This is the wounded heart talking. Ken Cannon is incredible at Japanese and an amazing Japanese teacher. And to this day, I have the utmost respect for him. That's how you know it hurt. That's how you know it hurt. Even though she dumped me, I still think she's a good person. Oh my gosh. On top of being an arrogant dirtbag, he's also a simp. Who could have guessed? And again, I don't want to hang up on this. Ken Cannon is not free from any of this, okay? As much as I don't like Matt, I also don't like Ken. And trust me, at some point I'll get into everything that I have on Ken Cannon as well, but why give him the spotlight in a Matt versus Japan video? Matt gets to eat this crow on his own. But his style of marketing is something that I never resonated with. To be honest, I always thought the clickbaity emails I always thought the clickbaity emails Ken wrote were cringe. But within our work partnership, Ken was in charge of marketing. So I generally let him have the final say. Matt, you have to humble yourself a little bit. The title of your email is I'm cutting ties with Ken Cannon. Do you not have the self-awareness to realize that this is obviously a clickbait title for an email because that is the controversy that you have been caught in for the last 3 years. And now, all of a sudden, magically, now it's a problem. Now Ken Cannon is a problem because now you're actually suffering the repercussions of some of your actions here. Trust me, if you go back in the Matt versus Japan email rabbit hole, you will find emails just as cringy, just as awful that Matt himself has wrote. What were the ones during the early days of Refold or whatever it was? Were those all Yoga's fault? I'm guessing. If something cringy comes out from the current Refold, is that one of your business partners? I actually have a theory about this. I think Matt versus Japan cannot survive on his own because he needs a fall guy in every situation to be there to take some of the heat off of him. Every time he's in a situation by himself where he has to handle the fact that the community he's in does not like him, he always needs to pin it on somebody else or 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 he needs to get as ferocious as possible and fight back against that community, and it never works out for him. It never works. That's why he has to team up with other people in the first place, because if anything bad happens, they're partly culpable, so he doesn't have to take the heat because he cannot handle it. And okay, I want to be clear, this part's in bold, and that's something I deeply regret. If you're reading this, you signed up to hear from me. I never should have sent out emails that I wasn't truly happy with, so I want to apologize for that and let you know it's never going to happen again. Sure, Matt. We'll see. Who's the next guy? It's not going to be George. I can say that for a fact. And mwah, love you, George. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to our side on this one. I have no idea who it's going to be. Is it going to be Katsumoto? I could see that happening. I could see it. I hope not, but maybe. From here on out, everything you receive from this email address will actually be written by me. And I'm committed to going back to how I originally was on YouTube. Straightforward, transparent, and no bullshits. Yeah. Oh yeah, if I could think of three ways to describe Matt versus Japan back in his early days of YouTube, those are exactly the three words I would come up with. Jesus Christ. For the last year, it's been longer than a year. Don't let him manipulate you. It has been longer than a year. Much, much longer than a year. It has been pretty close to 3 years. For the last year, Ken and I were running a group coaching program called Fluency Incubator. Ken and I had challenges in communication and coordinating live classes with each other, and that caused us to fall behind on content production. As a result, we decided it would be best to transition to doing separate things. I wish, just this one time, Matt, I wish you could just be honest and talk about what happened with George. I know you're not going to include his name here, okay? I know you're not going to do it because that would technically be including his name in another marketing thing that, you know, links to a course that you're trying to sell. So I know you wouldn't be dumb enough to do that. But you could at least acknowledge that Ken and yours course emails hurt your professional relationships. I would have this much more respect for you if that happened, which would probably, it would still be in the negatives, but it would be a little bit closer to zero. That said, overall Fluency Incubator was a success, and the students seems to really benefit from it. So now that Ken and I are parting ways, I'm starting my own online community built around a similar style of group coaching. I'm calling it the Immersion Dojo. I keep thinking to myself, how does it get worse? How could it possibly get worse? And then he hits you. He hits you from the blind spot with, it's called the Immersion Dojo. That is the dumbest possible name. That is like a parody name that if I wanted to make a Japanese teaching channel and I wanted to just be parodies of how like awful some of the parts of the Japanese learning community were, I would call it the Immersion Dojo to make fun of people in the Japanese learning community. That is so bad. Go here to learn more. Thanks for reading, Matt. Okay. So, couple things. Firstly, let's talk about this whole fluency incubator thing, because I find that very interesting. If you happen to not know, our good boy Matt versus Japan released a course alongside Ken Cannon called the Fluency Incubator. I watched all of Yokai's videos on this. I understand everything that I need to know about it. It was a $500 course baseline, and if you joined later, it moved up to being an $800 course. And the entire point of the course was to improve your pitch accent, make you sound more like a native. It was mostly focused around just making your voice sound as Japanese as possible, with some other benefits like learning some vocabulary and whatever. $800. I want you to keep in mind that what am I paying for Mikaku right now? What is it, like $48 a year? That is insane. That's 20 years worth of Mikaku, basically, right? Maybe a little less. Nearly 20 years worth of Mikaku for this less than a year course. And all this less than a year course does is make you sound slightly more Asian. Jesus. But unfortunately for Matt, that's like the one thing he has going for him, is that his pitch accent and his voice has always been pretty good. One of the best, honestly, when it comes to the YouTube learning community. He was a foreigner who was able to make himself sound Japanese. That's been his selling point since day one. And when this $800 course came out, George got a little bit shaken. Okay, he left a comment on Yokai's video bringing this up, and I thought that was going to be his come to Jesus moment, and it wasn't. Okay, it took a little while, but we got there eventually. But then here you are taking Matt's $800 course to become as Japanese as possible with your pitch accent, and he comes around from the back and hits you with another offer. In this new thing he's selling, he promises you fluency. The same thing that he was offering before. That's a little weird. And when you look at the the small token you have to pay for this bit of fluency that he wants to offer you, original price is nearly $3,000. But just for you, okay, look. I'm not supposed to do this, but something in your eyes, something in your eyes tells me that you might be just who I'm looking for. You might be a wizard. You might be the Jedi. You might be the protagonist of this little story I'm creating here. So you know what? As long as you don't tell anybody, I'm gonna go ahead and give this this bad boy to you for $150 a month. imagine imagine paying $800 for a course to be told that if you pay $150 a month now, that you might get the thing that you paid the $800 to get. What a joke. I love it. Oh, but the fun doesn't stop there, folks. Let's go ahead and dig into this a little bit deeper, shall we? Let's see where the heartache leads. So we're going to read a little bit of the copy that Matt has written for his new immersion dojo. And I want you to remember, there's no more Ken, there's no more anybody. So whatever happens from this point on, Matt is culpable all by himself like a big boy. I know what to do, but I can't stay consistent, is the biggest problem I hear from learners. The solution? Accountability through community. Receive coaching directly from me to stay on track with your target language. Oh, it's so different, Matt. Okay, I can definitely see that none of those emails at all from you and Kin Cannon had anything to do with you. Yep. This is completely different from the kind of thing that Kin Cannon would include in his emails. It's 100. It's night and day. Explosions, weekly workshop, explosions. Every week, we jump on a group Zoom call and talk shop. A recording of each call is uploaded afterwards. Calls are Saturdays at 5 p.m. PST. Oh my gosh. I refuse to give Matt versus Japan money, but I would pay somebody from the community to give me those recordings so I can go over them. Okay. Call this a bounty hunt. If you can get me these calls, I will literally pay you the $18 instead of Matt versus Japan. I give an update on my own language learning, as well as share my recent insights. Yeah, this is a little thing. Uh, so our boy Matt, he was gonna learn Chinese, right? And then After spending some time in Japan, he came to the conclusion that he doesn't like Chinese people, which ironically, being an Asian who hates other kinds of Asians, kind of makes him more Asian in a way, but I digress. Members share how their week went and receive direct feedback from me and other members. There it is. There it is. The next person he teams up with is going to be a community member, probably some huge sycophant of his that has been with him since the early days of YouTube. That's what's going to happen. It's not going to be somebody big from the language learning community. He's going to end up teaming up with a fan and making their dreams come true by letting them work alongside Matt versus Japan, which means they're going to get the majority of the work and also the blame if another fallout happens. We'll see. We all share immersion content recommendations so you never run out of content. Oh, imagine running out of immersion content. It's not like we don't have a bazillion different things, a bazillion different ways to get those things online. Live Q&A asks clarifying questions in real time. Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Matt, what the hell is wrong with you? I lied. That's literally my only question. Explosions, exclusive content, explosions. Additionally, I'm constantly uploading exclusive content just for dojo members. Hey, Matt, weren't you coming back to YouTube at some point? Swear, at one point, Matt said he was coming back to YouTube. Conversations in Japanese. Oh, finally. Behind the scenes from collabs. So he is looking. He is still in the market for somebody. Okay. I cannot fathom who it is in the community who is still willing to work with Matt versus Japan after this. Here's my favorite stuff that's a little too edgy for YouTube. See, it's funny because this could mean so many different things, and all of them are pretty sad. What this probably means is edgy humor. And let me be the first to say, I don't think you're going to be going to Matt for the hottest and spiciest memes. If he's talking about sexual content, for anybody else, I would say based. But for Matt, kind of seems like a desperate attempt to reach into another niche to try and get more money from people. See, the beauty of this being Matt versus Japan is no matter what it ends up being, it's going to be a train wreck. And I'm here for it. Okay, warning, guys. Warning, are you ready? Prices will go up as members increase. Oh, he just doesn't learn. He just doesn't learn. Reminder, guys, this is $18 a month. And the only reason it's $18 a month is so that he can tell you it's less than $20 a month. But even at that price point, this is going to be over $200 a year to join this. Please, I am begging you, cut him loose like he cut Kin Cannon loose. Okay, he let Kin Cannon take the dive for everything that happened with Uproot and Incubator. Let him go. I promise you, if you are willing to put in over $200 a year, there are so many better options out there. Get Migaku. Get Rocket Languages, okay? Pick Busu, Babbel. Hell, go to Duolingo if you really have to. That's like $20 a year on a family plan. Is it the best? Obviously not, but it's better than anything Matt has. $20 a year for that, or $20 a month for Matt. Honestly, it's not even a question. For more information, visit mattversusjapan.com. Hashtag dojo. Hashtag dojo. Oh, okay. All right. I think that's good. So sorry about no lesson, but I do hope you enjoyed spending this time with me, taking a Small laugh at Matt's expense. Always a good time. Keep up with your studies, and I will catch you in the next one.